Welcome to the CFL Outsider, a short series of totally impartial hot takes, odd takes, and generally unconventional opinions on the CFL and Canadian football, with your host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds.
Hey kids, welcome back to the CFL Outsider for the Grey Cup, ultimate trap game. I remain, as always, your 100% unbiased, completely impartial, and still processing host and presenter, Old Man Shouting at Clouds. I'm still processing the Grey Cup week, the game itself, and frankly, most of all, the fact it's going to be 5 or 6 months without any CFL football. It was a little bit of a disappointing end to an incredibly exciting 2024 season. Some of the playoff games were close until late, but none of them really felt in doubt at any time. And after a season where it seemed like the parity in the league was at an all-time high, anyone could beat anyone on any given week, suddenly in the playoffs, one team basically dominated each game. And the postseason just kind of fizzled. Not as exciting as I would have hoped. Now, I will say the Argonauts did look impressive in winning the Cup, and they get full credit for that victory. But I'll stop short of congratulating them because the cost of the victory to me is a little too high. It's been apparent for some time now that the Argonauts' culture, the organization way is winning football trumps everything. It's disappointing, and frankly it highlights the worst parts of the game we love. Because yes, football is just a game. I mean, players get paid for doing it, they're professionals, and some people, very few actually, make money betting on it, and we get a lot of entertainment out of watching the pros play, but that's not where the value of football is. Football's true value is in the important lessons it teaches young players. Young players who often come to the game because they're fans of the pros. If they're well coached, those young players, they learn to understand and to believe in the values of teamwork and trust, leadership, control of aggression, and humility. Those are all key parts of being a good citizen and living a successful life. But teaching those things is much harder to do when the pro team that the players cheer for has values counter to the common good. You know, much is made of the Argos' lack of support within the Toronto community. Perhaps if they made the effort to become a force for good in the community, if they started making decisions based on common decency rather than football superiority, they might find their fans more willing to embrace them. So let's talk about the game. The Grey Cup. Toronto 41 at Winnipeg 24. Three-peat defeat. It was obvious right from the coin toss that there were nervous folks aplenty in this game. Even head referee Ben Major forgot to ask either team to call the toss, and then I think inadvertently slipped in a little bit of a personal scratch that probably was not ready for national television. And from there, the game was not really all that pretty. It was still a 1-point game with 7.5 minutes left on the clock, and they were within a score with 5 minutes left. But it never felt close. The Bombers looked unfocused. The intensity that last week allowed them to dominate a very strong Riders team, well, it just was gone. They took an illegal procedure penalty on their first snap of the game, and that really kind of set the tone. They ended up going 2 and out. And then on the punt return, Tyrell Ford, who last week did a amazing job of containing Mary Alford on one return where he almost got to the corner and had a big one. Very same situation this game, but the Argos blocked him up, got him sealed inside. Generian Grant got to the corner and took the ball back almost to midfield. Then from there, they looked not bad marching it down with Nick Arbuckle, the backup, in there. They still looked fairly sharp, got it down to the Winnipeg 1-yard line. And on 3rd and 1, they appeared like they were going to go for it, but really just tried to draw Winnipeg offside. Now, the reason I mention this is all season, Dinwiddie in that situation has gone for it on 3rd and close down there. His attitude seems to be, if we don't make it, our defense will stop them. We'll get the ball punted back to us around midfield and be back to have a chance for a field goal instead of a touchdown and giving them the ball at the 40. This game, he took the short field goal. Championship game, he was more conservative. I wondered how that was going to turn out for him, but it worked out fairly well. The Bombers, when they did get the ball back, they scored on a 5-play, 67-yard touchdown drive. But 49 of those 67 yards came on one pass to Ontario Wilson. They really had very few big plays all game. And then the Bombers' lack of focus showed up again when Castile landed the kickoff out of bounds, and Toronto took over on the 50-yard line. Now, the Bombers' defense, they found their footing a bit in the second quarter. The offense, though, continued to flounder. They did manage to march the ball down to the Toronto 8-yard line a little later in the quarter, but then had 2 consecutive broken plays and had to settle for a field goal. And on both plays, the receivers just looked confused, running around. They weren't sure what formation, where they were supposed to be. They were scrambling just to have a legal formation by the time the ball was snapped. And other than that, the second quarter was mostly just back and forth with a few highlights. Willie J got sort of the ultimate reputation sack. He came flying in around Stanley Bryant and from the back got a swipe where he just brushed against Arbuckle's hand and arm, and Arbuckle cradled the ball and dropped to the ground, turtling. It wasn't taking any chances of a turnover. So that's a sack on reputation, I'm thinking. And then Benji Franklin made a very athletic interception off of a Collaros throw. But Toronto only got 2 field goals and Winnipeg only put up 1 of the 3-pointers. So they led 10-9 at the half. Now, of course, you can't have a Grey Cup game without a rouge. It is the CFL. And Toronto got the obligatory one out of the way early in the second half with a punt that went into the end zone and tied the game up at 10-all. Later in the quarter, the Argos got another nice touchdown catch from Kevin Mattel after Lucky Whitehead fumbled a punt return and gave the ball back to the Argos on the Winnipeg 17. Winnipeg did manage to get a field goal back after Bonds picked off Arbuckle on the Toronto 20. But they weren't able to move. They could not get into the end zone well at all. And on that last play, Collaros hit his hand on a helmet and split one of his fingers on his throwing hand open. He had to go back to the locker room for stitches. Third quarter ended in a pretty wild punt play. Ayers managed to block a Hegarty punt without touching the punter. The ball was rolling around behind the Argos, deep in Argo territory. Even if the Argos had managed to recover it, it would have been Winnipeg's ball on loss of downs. But again, bad decisions, no focus. Kyrie Wilson for the Bombers shoved one of the Argos out of the way on his hurry to get to the ball, which is a very rare loose ball interference penalty, and that by rule gives the ball back to the Argos. So Winnipeg's great block punt did nothing for them. But Willie Jefferson, the one Bomber who did play hard and well, had a fantastic game all game, he made that mistake a little bit irrelevant when instead of batting down an Arbuckle throw at the line of scrimmage, he managed to catch it. Very impressive. And with backup quarterback Terry Wilson in the game now while Zach was getting his hand tended to, the Bombers were held to a field goal again. No end zone. After that, the Argos came back, an 8-play, 70-yard drive. Got touchdown to Brissett in the end zone. The score was 24-17 with 7 minutes left in the game. And the wheels really came off for the Bombers. Collaros returned to the game sporting a glove over his now repaired finger. And they tested his grip by starting with a deep throw. The throw was short, and Amos made a play by picking it off and returning it to the Winnipeg 16-yard line. While the Bombers' defense did hold Toronto to a field goal, the score was now 27-17, a little bit more than 5 minutes left. Even at that point, down 2 scores, in a crucial point when every play matters, the Bombers were just frazzled. Dembski took an important offside penalty on what was a first down catch. 2 plays later, they're having to go for it on 3rd down, and Priester picks off Collaros and takes it to the house. A kickoff from that, 2 plays later, and it's McManus picking off Collaros. And then Toronto takes over, and Carey runs one in from the 4. Winnipeg did manage one more garbage time touchdown, but that, while it made the score a little more respectable, was really irrelevant. And that was the game. So there's other stuff to talk about, I will say, just from the week. It was nice to see that TSN/CTV spent the money and invested in some nice new graphics for the game. A nice flashy new look for the quarter time stats. And they had a very nice graphic of Mount Rushmore for the rushing Canadians, with basically a mountain with the graphics of Kwong, Cornish, Harris, and Oliveira carved into it. I was also unimpressed, I have to say, with Pinball Clements' context during the week about the whole Chad Kelly situation this year. He talked to the media about how it made the Argos a better team, how they'd made changes, and they were talking more directly with their female staff, and a bunch of other, frankly, boilerplate type stuff. But when asked to give any actual details, any changes in policy, anything that they had done that would specifically address the situation, he wouldn't give anything, citing privacy and the bargaining agreement as reasons why he can't talk about it. Didn't ring true to me. Rang false. That's an organization. I hate to see it with Pinball because he seemed like a good man, but got to clean it up somehow if they ever really want to endear themselves to the fans again. I will say that in the Eastern Final, the Alouettes pretty much gave up the ball without any real strong effort from the Argonauts defense. They were dropping it and fumbling it with little impetus. This game, though, the Argos took 4 interceptions, and all of them were well earned. Results of good scheme and great play by the defensive backfield. Of course, not being able to have the all 24, I didn't know exactly what their defensive backfield was doing, but I was told by someone who did attend the game that there was very close coverage on the Bomber receivers all game. So like I said, full marks to the Argos. Apparently all of the Bombers vets, all those aging veterans, have said they're keen on coming back for one more year next year. The 2025 Grey Cup in Winnipeg. And given the trend, I mean, let's look at this. In 2019, they finished 3rd in the West, had their miracle run with Kolaris new to the team, and won the Grey Cup quite handily. 2 years later, post-COVID, after the missed season, they finished 1st and won the Grey Cup in overtime. Eked it out a little bit. Nice interception to close that one off, but it was closer. 2022, they won the West and lost the Grey Cup on a blocked field goal. In 2023, they won the West and lost the Grey Cup on a last-minute touchdown pass to Tyson Philpott. And in 2023, they won the West, but were within a Montreal BJ of finishing in 2nd place, and frankly got blown out in the 3rd quarter of the Grey Cup. So like I said, given the trend, all them veterans coming back, that might just be good news for the rest of the Western Division. And it makes me wonder, is it time to start calling them the Winnipeg Bills Bombers yet? I'll also finish this off for the season with a special nod to the Riders fans, who are probably even now falling asleep dreaming of winning the 2025 championship in the Bombers' house. And that's about it. It's been a hell of a ride, but we're done with another season of Canadian football. Thank you to all of you who've discovered this and supported the show here. Looking back, it's been a fun rookie season for me. I got to admit, if you check out the first shows, they're pretty cringeworthy. If you want something like along the lines of bad shows that are so bad they might be worth watching, maybe you want to go back and pick up some of the preseason ones and early on. But I started figuring things out as the season wore on. I feel like I got a more consistent voice and format, and seem to have made it entertaining enough that a bunch of you are sticking with it. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Be doing some off-season CFL content off and on, taking a look at the draft and at free agency, maybe any trades, anything like that. So there will be some stuff, but it'll be a lot more irregular. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please make sure you do so before you leave here. And then that way you won't miss any of the off-season tidbits, and I'll be right there in your notifications to start out next season, and we can enjoy this all together. If you want to respond to anything that I've said today, or frankly all season, please leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube. Or if you're listening on a podcast or you don't like leaving public content, you can also find me on Mastodon, where I'm at Oldman_shouting@clouds. And on Blue Sky, where I'm at Oldman-sac.bsky.social. And on Reddit, I'm u/Oldmanshoutingcloud. Of course, there's also good old-fashioned email if you'd rather do that. Oldman, all one word, .shouting@clouds@shaw.ca. And if you didn't get any of those, don't worry, they'll be in the show notes. You can just look them up there. Please let me know what you're doing. I also hope to be doing some non-CFL content during the off-season, just to keep my hand in and to get better at podcasting, so I'll be even better next year for your enjoyment. I'll send out a short teaser when those start to drop, and you'll be able to decide if you want to subscribe to them or just come back for the football next year. That's it. I hope you have a wonderful winter. I hope things go well for your family, you, your loved one, everyone. And I can't wait to see you again when it's time to play some more football. But until then, until next time, get the hell off my lawn!